She's the founder and owner of Story House Real Estate. QB, as we affectionately call him, of course, the principal broker and owner of Keller Williams Alliance. The gentleman has his hands in a number of other pots as well, if you may. And Keith Smith, of course, the co-founder of Yes Realty Partners. Today's show is going to be stakeholders. What do you call Fridays? Stakeholders and coffee?
Coffee
with the stakeholders?
Coffee with the awesome people. How does
The
that
awesome
sound?
people.
That has a good ring.
There we go.
I like that.
We usually call it coffee with the experts, but we're going to switch it to coffee with awesomeness.
We have props in the house too, magic wands, crystal balls. Alakazam Toy Store is well represented today as well.
They did great to me yesterday.
We got a
That's awesome.
QB in a fabulous sports coat today.
You know, I have to try and keep up. You keep bringing better looking people on the show. I've got to at least put on a jacket.
You look
I
fresh.
think he's referencing Sasha there. Yeah,
What? Really?
I think it's not you,
Such an
Keith.
assumption.
Nobody noticed.
I wanted to clear that up because Keith immediately thought that was about himself there.
Of course. What's
I
wrong with you?
immediately thought that was about himself.
I happened
He's
to
talking about Sasha, which you will see short.
I bought a new suit. I'm just saying. Nobody noticed it.
A lot we're going to cover, guys. Judah Wickower, we can start when you're ready, sir.
Why don't sit?
Guys, good Friday morning. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk here on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world, on a program presented by Keller Williams Alliance, powered by Segura Solar. And if you check the screen, just trusted advisors on the real estate supply chain here in Central Virginia and in the Shenandoah Valley. I think today's program is going to be absolutely dynamite. We have three folks on our panel that are the best of the best in this field. Judah Wickower, we give accolades to, of course. He's our director, the man behind the camera. If you could, my friend, go to the foreshot and let's welcome the panel of superstars. Guys, good morning, and thank you for joining us on Real Talk. Sasha, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, finally in person. I'm excited.
Our pleasure. Keith Smith, you put the panel together, my friend.
Yeah, so we're everybody's here. This is their first rodeo. Sasha's first one was virtually, so thank you for coming in person. But, you know, for the 2 or 3 people that maybe don't know who you are, give us a little snapshot of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Sasha Tripp, and I am the owner of Story House Real Estate. And Story House, we're celebrating our 4th birthday this year.
Congratulations.
I think, like this
Has
month.
it only been 4?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I was shocked. But yeah, we're really excited. I was previously at Montague Miller and then came over to Story House Real Estate with my team, and we are just rocking and rolling, all residential real estate. And we're over on Ivy Road across from Foods of All Nations, so we're just trying to stay alive in this wild market, which has been a lot of fun.
So I have a quick question for you on the 4 years, but we'll let Quentin Beckham introduce himself for the couple people who
Oh,
don't
who
know.
doesn't know me?
Oh, yeah, it's just what they say.
In this group, this audience.
Is it from the poster in the post office, the photo, or is it some other place that folks?
Well, we don't have to go there.
The one
Yeah. I mean, I was 11 before I realized not everybody kept their family albums in the post office, but
We got a lot of agents giving you props already. Ray Cadell says there's some real estate power here.
Yeah.
Kevin Yancey says good morning all. Emily Coulter, I have really been looking forward to today's show. Some great folks on this panel. Excited to hear their input on today's market. I mean, guys, you have Long and Foster, we got Christie's, we got Ness, we got the Story House team, Real Estate 3 on the broadcast right now. Keller Williams is in the house.
So Sasha, 4 years ago when you started, what's the big difference between now and then? And
Oh my
walk
gosh.
us through that a little bit.
Well, you know, I thought we were in a really hot market then, so it's funny to see how things change. But yeah, we were in a really busy market. We opened in the month of April, which is a terrible time to start a real estate business because we were in the throes of just pure spring market. And I remember thinking, did I just open my business in the busiest year of real estate that I'll experience in my career? And then we had like 3 years that were much hotter to follow. So it's been crazy, but now we are just seeing things move faster, prices are higher, and I think people are a little better educated right now than I felt like they were a few years ago just about what's going on. So it's been really fun to find good partnerships with clients.
And real estate's been in the news every time we turn around, so it's nice that people are actually reading it,
Yeah.
although sometimes the global view and the local view are completely different things.
Totally. That's something that has been a trend forever in Charlottesville, and it continues to be. So yeah, it's fun to try to keep tabs on everything.
So last time we had 5% mortgage and plus, because I did a little research this morning, which is not in the stuff I sent you guys, it was 2011. Were you in the market in 2000?
I was, yeah.
So I know Quentin and I were. So what's the difference between 2011 and now? What's the big difference?
Gosh, I remember 2011. I mean, 5%, it didn't seem to really ruffle any feathers back then. I think when you're coming off of a string of 3 and 4%, it sounds scary. The difference now is that we just have so many buyers out there. I think in 2011 it felt a lot more balanced.
Well, you had way more inventory.
Way more
That
inventory.
was
Yeah,
the
we were coming
difference.
off of kind of like some bad years. It was just a lot more. It was just a lot more balanced. So you had slightly higher interest rates, but you weren't seeing this crazy competition for homes. So it wasn't also driving the price up. And it gets tough when the interest rates are high and the price is high. I think it was a little easier back then.
It was, and I wonder how much of it is manufactured. You know, we talk about consumer confidence so much. And if I reminisce to when we had our own little miniature gas crisis, there was...
For a weekend?
For a weekend, because everybody's like, oh my gosh, there's no more gas, and they were putting it in plastic shopping bags and
Yep.
all sorts of fun and interesting things. I wonder sometimes from the pandemic and the items if we didn't sort of manufacture some housing
Chaos. Chaos.
Drama.
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, 5%, like
It's cheap
back in
money.
the day, yeah, I was thrilled to have a 5%
Yeah.
interest rate. Thrilled. So,
It's cheap money.
Yeah, truly.
I want to highlight a post that you did on your Storyhouse page.
Oh, yeah.
And you also shared it, I believe, on your personal page. You are navigating a tight inventory market well. You are representing sellers, and you're representing buyers, and the buyers are finding homes. I mean, you had a hell of a lot of transactions on that post. Was it
Yes.
72 hours ago that you did?
Yes.
It was this week.
That was kind of our March wrap up. I think we ratified, we have 6 full-time sales agents. I think we ratified 43 transactions in March. So we're getting them through. I would not say it's like fun and easy. It's with a lot of difficulty and a lot of consultation and a lot of expectation setting. But we are getting, if people want a home right now, we are finding ways to do it. That's not to say that we're always winning bidding wars, but we have just found some ways to make sure that people are as competitive as possible if they want to be.
So we were talking off air before we went on. I run this 7-day snapshot of the car footprint, and we had, as of today, 7 days back, we had 108 come on, 124 pending. But there was a number on the bottom that we haven't talked about in a long time, which is open houses.
Yep.
Are we starting to see them come back? 44 of them. It was, a few months ago, it was 0.
Yeah.
How is that impacting the market, open houses? Guys, jump in, whoever wants to jump in.
In some ways, I think it feeds the competition because you have all of these buyers that for so long had no opportunity to physically stand in a house, either because they were moving from out of state, they had to buy really quickly or out of area, or the amount of physical interaction you could have with the property was so limited. And so we still have more buyers than we do houses, and you'll see lines for a lot of these open houses, I would imagine.
Yeah, we're doing them purely for logistics so that, if we have these busy houses that can't get all the showings in, then you at least have a couple hours of a window of flexibility so that if you're not able to get a schedule showing set up, you can at least pop in and get a chance to look at it. We do not love people writing, sight unseen offers, so we would love for them to have a
Correct.
chance to get in and take a look.
And just, it was maybe a week ago, Jason put a house on the market as a coming soon on Thursday. We started showings on Friday.
Kirby?
Yep, and by Thursday at 5 p.m., we had 45
Right, they're full.
requests
Yeah,
for
there's
showings.
nothing left.
And
Right.
we were doing them in 30-minute increments, trying to get everybody through.
Yeah, it's
Well,
wild.
thank you for doing them for 30, because we were
The 15s.
we were doing the 15 minutes, and thank God for Ms. Searcy, who was behind me, Erin was behind me, and
Yes.
we kind of worked together because it was impossible to see.
15
all-
is just
it was
so
just
absurd.
insane.
I guess it's better than 0, so I try to look at the positive light, but 15 is totally absurd.
And it's at all price points.
Yeah.
Bonnie Gibbons had a 2-3 in Farmington that went under contract in a day and a half.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to bring this up here. She utilized Coming Soon. You know I'm going to bring up Coming Soon on today's show. She utilized Coming Soon, and the demand was out of the gates super strong. So, Keith, important to emphasize, every price point is enjoying this here.
And that was the difference in 2011. That was the difference in 4 years ago. There were certain price points that were moving up and down, and I've got this lovely scale in front of me. A little bit later, we'll talk about what I think, or what we all think, is going to get this market back to balance. It is for 3-year-olds and up, so it's my perfect age group.
Right.
So I
Oh,
can-
it's on there.
Right
He's
on
got it on the
par.
screen.
I can handle it. But to go back to the Coming Soon end of it, I think all three of us will have different opinions on it
This
a
is a
little bit.
Pandora's box that's going to be great
Oh,
for a
yeah.
talk show right here. Coming Soon.
Could go all
And,
day.
So I've shared my opinion, but I tell you what, from a broker side of it, what do you guys think?
You should share your opinion again. We have a lot of
Yeah,
folks
give me
watching here.
give a snapshot.
Yeah, we would like you to start.
Oh, great. So look, it's like anything, right? There's two sides of it. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good, right? I think, and I made this comment on the show the other day, what's happening here is the homes are going into Coming Soon on Facebook. We as real estate agents and CAR and MLS can't really control that. So what I'm having buyers call me and say, hey, I just saw this home on
Social media.
Social media.
Yeah.
It's coming soon. I want to get in and see it. Then I have to have this whole conversation. Hold it, time out. It's not coming on the market for 2 weeks from now. I can't show it for 2 weeks. And this angst is out there from a buyer's perspective. From a seller's perspective, it's a great tool, right? You can stack up, as you just said, showings and so forth and so on. But I think when this little balance starts balancing back or going the other way, this is going to be a little bit more complicated. But that's my opinion.
Also, and I'll jump in and then QB get in here, from a lender's perspective, Scott Morris is watching here.
Yeah.
I see 4 lenders watching the program. Scott Morris of Ross Mortgage, and he said that he's getting folks qualified for Coming Soon properties. So once the property is active and hits the MLS, they already have everything ready to go.
Well, that's just everybody at this table doing their job,
Definitely.
Yeah.
right? But I think it just sends, personally, I think it sends a wrong signal to the buyer anyway on that end of it, but that's my personal opinion.
QB.
I think in the best of all worlds, though, when you are trying to get 45 showings in, if you can have 24 to 72 hours for buyers to really research the things they need to research, check out the neighborhoods, do all of the prep work, and have a good consult with their agent about what they're willing to do, because we talk about winning bids, and some bids aren't worth winning.
Correct.
It gives them a little bit of processing time before that goes live, and suddenly you're in the middle of paperwork. And so I think, and it used correctly, it's a great tool to allow the maximum number of buyers an opportunity for each house that comes up, and to put their best foot forward if they have a good person really working and coordinating with them.
That's today. And what Sasha said, the seller expectations, there's going to be this period of changing on this end of it where all of a sudden, well, hold it, how come I don't have 30 people lined
Right.
up every 15 minutes to see my house?
Totally.
So what's
Well,
your thoughts?
I feel like on the car side of things, I feel like I was sort of the ambassador of Coming Soon, but not by choice. I just happened to be running the MLS committee
just
at the
got
time.
appointed to it.
So I got appointed and I got to speak about it and I got to be the most educated about it, but it didn't necessarily mean that I agreed with how it was set up. And I will tell you, I do think it gives a very good setup for the seller. It's a runway that we were giving our sellers prior to, the NAR, this is probably over a lot of people's heads, the NAR passed down clear cooperation, which essentially meant that like if we were going to market a property in any way that a consumer could find it, then all consumers should be able to find it, and certainly all realtors should be able to find it. So they passed, and that makes total sense. They passed that, and we sort of had to adjust what our MLS was doing in response. So we created the Coming Soon, because we did have these listings. Something I was already doing as a practice sort of before this blew up was we had a 24 to 48 hour period of time where we were finishing final touch-ups. It was sort of between the moment it went live to when showing started, and that was totally fine per our MLS at that time. That is no longer okay. So people use this Coming Soon system to sort of pre-market their home. But I will tell you what it has done is, we had a woman who said, I just don't want to sell my home in the MLS. It had some mold issues that she was willing to fully disclose. She disclosed to everyone. She did not want it on the MLS because she was worried about all the liability of people coming and going. And I said, well, I cannot market it to a certain number of people. I cannot just take it to a couple of builders in town that flip properties. I'm not allowed to do that, because if I market it to one, I have to market it to all. And so what she felt like she had to do, she wanted to enlist me as her realtor. She wanted me to work through the sale. She had to call those couple of property flippers herself, show it to them off the market, and then sign the listing agreement with me the next day to take over from there, so that I was doing what I had to do per our MLS rules, but she was doing what she had to do to market her property in the way she wanted to. And I just feel that Coming Soon doesn't necessarily accomplish the objectives that it was meant to accomplish. It's trying to make this a more clear platform, but I don't know that it definitely works that way.
But this is typical how items like this work, right? Those who watch the show or listen to the show know I'm involved in a lot of local governments. So this is very typical. State, feds, local governments will say, this is the new rule, then everybody under us have to figure out how to work it. But you've got an awesome wand in front of you with a star on top of it. So if you could wave that magic wand and fix Coming Soon, what would you do?
Shorten the window from 2 weeks.
Well, 2 weeks, we
It's
never
absurd.
do 2 weeks. We always do Tuesday to a Friday. We never do 2 weeks, because I feel like that is
It's absurd.
unfair to the buyer. It's like, it's putting
It's painful.
it's painful. It's
It
painful
is.
for all of us. So I would say that the period of time feels very long. And, I don't, like the whole idea of being able to talk about any material detail about a property, like that not being allowed unless you're marketing it, that seems very strange to me, because I could talk to Quentin, he could be saying today, hey, I have a Mill Creek property coming up soon, and we were just talking about Mill Creek a couple of days ago, and while he doesn't tell me the street address, I have literally sleuthed out. Someone had said it's a first floor master in this neighborhood. There's only 12 in the whole
Here
neighborhood.
are the square feet.
I went through and looked house by
So
house
is
to
it
see
really
where they
achieving
represented.
what
It's
it's
just
suppo-
not doing what it's
There you go.
supposed
That's
to
the
do.
point.
But I don't have an answer in light of the clear cooperation rule. If anybody wants to pre-market their home at all, I don't know that there's an answer.
We should
to that
make this very layman's terms, and I'm going to get out of the way here. It's to prevent pocket listings. We should highlight that.
Well, that was the intent. It's also had something to do with the DOJ lawsuit.
Right, there's
that's
a lot,
going on.
yeah, there's a
It's
lot of
what-
reasons
It's way much
behind
more
it,
than that.
but pocket listings really, you could still have a pocket listing with your own firm. You just
So-
can't
so
have it
that-
with
so
other-
let's
you
talk
just
about
can't
that,
have
'cause
it with
people
a
do not
group
know
of
that.
brokers.
Yeah, and we've had clients that have asked for that. I think my biggest issue with clear cooperation is that more than limiting us and our behavior, it limits the seller's options.
Totally.
And it can put them in a place where they cannot have good advice and a professional counseling them through the process.
Right, they're trying to find a loophole to.
They're trying
do
to
it the
find a
right way.
loophole, and so I think the intent was good, but we've driven a lot of stuff underground and made, I don't know, it's the Underground Railroad of real estate now, where people are trying to find all these different ways to do it without having 100 people traipse through
Right,
their
and
house.
So
they
the
want to
NAR
enlist us at some point, but they just can't enlist us at the time that it would have been like the
Yep.
most critical, potentially.
So the NAR's ruling is 24 hours,
Right.
right? So we can go, we as a local MLS can go all the way down to 24 hours. That might be a little short. I think the 48, 72 hours max makes a lot of sense.
I do think there are benefits to it when you do, like, at first people saw it as if we're holding off offers and we're sort of giving the weekend of time, of course that gives time for the fair market to compete. But if the seller is going to want the fair market to compete, it's like, well, let's at least have some boundaries on it. Let's call it what it is and talk about what it's going to look like. And then the buyers have several days instead of in markets prior, it's like the property comes on Friday, you have to write an offer Friday within an hour or it's gone already and it's done. At least it's giving them a little bit of a runway to understand what they're purchasing. So I do feel better about that, but of course it allows fair market competition, which the seller is going to choose.
Agents with questions on this topic. The coming soon is a hot topic, as you can tell on the panel right here. So this is from Ray Cadell, okay? I understand the listing agent or someone from that firm can view a house in coming soon status. If that's correct, just a little more unfairness and confusion for the consumer. Anyone want to touch that one? And more on this.
So what is the ruling? Is internal? What is it, guys?
Oh, in terms of can your own, so as far as I understand, it cannot be shown by any person
That's
unless
exactly
it's
right.
inactive. So my own, I can go to it,
You can
obviously I'm
talk
the
about
listing
it.
agent, but my own agents, my own buyer's agents do not have showings at that house until it's active. However, they do know that it's coming. As soon as we have a signed listing agreement, and sometimes we sign our listing agreements 3 months prior to the listing going live, my agents do know about it, but no one is physically allowed in that property if it's not inactive. So,
Right.
my thought on it is that, some of these big firms in town, we're a tiny little firm, so this scared me to death when it came out. Some of these big firms in town, it's like if all of the agents in that big firm knew about it, again, hopefully the seller would put their foot down and say, hey, we're looking for fair market competition, not just your firm's buyers. But a big firm could just share it all in-house and write a sight unseen offer, and their own agents could sell all of their own houses. So I don't feel that it's a great, for a small brokerage, I feel like
You
it's
just
very
made my
scary.
heart pitter patter.
We're tiny. It's scary to see some of this stuff
And
happen.
I think it's three buckets in my mind. I don't know exactly what the rules are because I wasn't on that committee and did not want to
Good
be,
for you.
especially watching you go through it.
Thank you for doing that.
There is a broker-only listing, which is a non-marketed, only agents within that brokerage,
In perpetuity, like the
In
whole
perpetuity.
time. Right.
which gets zero marketing. Then I believe coming soon is a different bucket where you can do marketing but no showings.
Right.
Then you have active. And in my brain, those don't mix. And I think whether it's fair under the rules or not, when you start mixing them together, you're creating a situation that doesn't serve anybody.
So
Correct.
to speak to Jerry's point, what triggers this is public marketing.
Correct.
Right, period. So once it goes on social media, once somebody puts a sign in the ground, bam.
Anything that
A
consumer
flyer.
designs,
You're
yeah.
done. But it's very important what Sasha said, and I want the folks who are listening to know this. A licensed real estate agent cannot show that home, regardless if it's in your firm or a different firm,
Correct.
until it is fully active, period.
Correct. Yeah, so there should be no advantages. It should not be getting shown.
But it's no
if
different.
it's
You
not
have you
inactive.
have sales meetings once a week, right? And you
Right.
talk about, hey, this is what's coming up.
Oh, yeah, they get to know about it, so they get.
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah,
get
yeah.
a
That's all
runway.
this is. Yona's got 12 listings coming up. We're talking about it, so forth and so on. That's just us doing our jobs.
Right, and
Right.
I would just say, on our firm, we would never, ever, even if we were allowed to let our own agents go see it first, how would I explain that to my seller? Like, hey, we're just going to only let these 5 people and their buyers see your house and see if there's a good offer that comes out of that. And we're just, how do I argue to that that's the fair market competing for their home? And so, if that's taken the other direction, some people could use that as a tremendous advantage.
And I think our fiduciary, regardless of what the rules are, if we really embrace our fiduciary, we shouldn't do that.
Correct.
Because that is not in the best interest of our client.
Correct.
So my last 2 coming soons that I personally did, and to see if you two guys are seeing the same thing, I actually had more phone calls from Northern Virginia agents than I did local agents. And I actually, because we do 45-minute showings and allow 15 minutes leeway between that, and I filled up 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Just Northern Virginia real estate agents,
Yeah.
not local real estate agents. So, one, I'm trying to figure out how that happens. And second of all, are you guys seeing the same thing?
Well, I think of what we've just been through where we're Zooming with people all across the country because we were all working from home. Real estate's in the same thing. You've got people looking in broader geography with a limited inventory tapping the agents they know and saying, I want that house 75 miles that way.
Or the properties gaining exposure on, say, moms groups on social media.
Oh, shit, yeah, the exposure is greater than ever.
Right.
Everywhere.
And so I just think that's the world we're going to be living in
I also think there's
now.
a shortage of inventory, so
Yeah.
agents are saying like, well, I
They're
can't sell
desperate.
as many houses, so I brought in my
I've never
geographical.
in the
We do not, as a company, we don't allow that, but I know, I mean, in the state of Virginia, you are licensed and anybody.
You don't allow your team members to expand beyond Central
So
Virginia?
we basically, we're Central Virginia, yeah.
Okay.
We have great agents that we refer to in a couple, like, as you get
Mm-hmm.
north past Culpeper, if you get out past Nelson, I feel like we can only be geographically sound in making, recommendations to clients within a certain area. And every agent has a different expertise. And if you were born and raised in Orange, then maybe you can go a little further north. If you have a house in your way south of town, maybe you can go a little further south. But as a whole, we do not sell things that we are not
We're
comfortable
trusted
with and don't have.
advisors, and we
Correct.
need to bring our expertise, and only until recently, even back in 2003, 4, and 5, and 6, when this was insane, just as insane as I've never seen Northern Virginia agents.
Well, no, because they couldn't get into our ML, they couldn't get access to our listings before, and now they can.
Well, that's a whole
And
topic.
they can get
for a
access to
different-
our showing instructions, but not really. They get bits and pieces of it, and then they get to the
Yeah.
house and they don't know how to show it, or they don't have the code, and it's like, it adds another full-time job for us, trying to help these agents from other areas figure out where neighborhoods are and, how to use our system.
But as this
So-
balance goes, this will come back as inventory starts loosening up a little bit up in there, but we're years away before that happens.
I hope, but now that these MLS boundaries are open, I think it could
Yeah.
carry on longer.
I was talking about you with an agent of
Okay.
mine the other day, and I feel okay saying that because I'm going to tell you what we said.
Okay, that's fine, as long as you admit it.
They have a neighborhood that they've worked in for a very long time, and for the first time ever, they saw your sign in the yard, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, what's she doing in this neighborhood? What have I done wrong?" And I'm just reminding all of my agents, like, maybe your one neighborhood's not going to support your goal anymore. If you have a plan to sell X number of houses this year and have X number of listings, within the geography that you're competent, you might still be spreading out.
Right.
And so you're going to see different people's signs in different neighborhoods, and we'll be moving all around the territories that we do know.
Right,
And I
Central
don't-
Virginia should sustain the average person.
That
I don't
it
think we
should-
need to go through the whole
correct.
state of
You would
Virginia.
think.
I think
Correct.
but it's short, but we're not that short. on
And so
inventory.
I think we're going to see more of that shifting around, and it does not surprise me that we're seeing more Northern Virginia folks reaching out and making offers, and I can like it or not like it, but there
Well,
it is.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but inside tip, they're often the ones winning the bidding wars because they
Yeah.
have no idea what values in these areas are, so they just go to the highest number they have to, right?
They're
They
also,
have no
they're
idea.
also mostly cash, too.
Well, inside tip with the caveat, they're often representing buyers that have cashed out of
That's exactly
the
right.
Northern Virginia
Well,
market with bags of money.
People keep saying that, and I will say, so, we had probably 65 offers that we negotiated last weekend, because we had 6 houses or whatever,
And how
and it's a
many were
bunch of
cash?
offers, and
Yep.
it's very painful, but we had all these offers, we had 2 cash buyers, 0 were investors, so there's and they were in price points that, like, they were definitely like medical community price points
Yeah.
that are affordable as investment properties, so I feel like there's all this talk of like Northern Virginia and California are coming with their multi-millions and they're just buying up our houses because they're cheaper. That has really not been what I'm
That is,
seeing in
we
practice.
proved those numbers
Yeah.
on the show a few weeks ago. That is literally not the case. But there is more cash down payments coming in.
Yes, for
right? So when we say we got to be careful, not total cash purchases, but we're not seeing the 3% to 7%.
Right. And
We're
people
s-
that can waive the appraisal gaps more than ever before.
Correct. So that's the influence of cash
Right.
into the market, where Jerry is saying, I sold my townhome in Old Town, right?
It's the neighbors across the street from me. They did a 1,200 square foot townhome in, I think it was Arlington.
Yeah.
For 1.4, came in and bought something in Glenmore for 8, put 200K into it.
Yep.
And then still walked with a, 250, 300 Delta that they put in the bank. And they're working from their basement for the firms that they were at in Northern Virginia. And they're so happy. Let me just emphasize that. They're so happy. Elizabeth Cromwell is so happy with Sasha. The chamber is lucky to have Sasha Tripp
There
on
you
her
go,
board of
Elizabeth.
directors.
Oh, thanks, Elizabeth.
She is a strategic thinker, always raises her hand, first to lend a helping hand, and never puts her very successful business ahead of our efforts for the greater business community. Ray really wants to emphasize this, but the agents can view, in all caps, it, and they could write sight unseen offer. It's happening out there, folks.
Well, we're getting a lot of sight unseen offers, but they
Yeah.
are not, they are literally not
So if a
viewing
real
it.
estate agent got in there and then wrote an offer, I
Yeah,
believe that crosses the line.
Yeah, send that on over to car report. Yeah, that
Yeah,
should
I
not
don't-
be happening.
I don't know how all the rules work, but I know how they should work.
Yes.
And I think in the end, we have to be responsible as licensees to live in the spirit of the law, even if the letter of it does not meet.
Well said. Well
Right,
said.
you sort of know what the intention of the rule is. If you feel like you're kind of tiptoeing around it, you probably aren't.
Shouldn't be tiptoeing
Yeah,
around
you probably
it.
aren't in the right spot.
Much like my teen years, even though you don't understand what you're doing wrong, there's something inside of you that says, this is probably not a good idea. You should back up and think about that.
Do we even remember our teens?
I have fuzzy memories of it. Yeah.
Hey, so inventory, talk about inventory all the time. I've just read an article, I sent the link out to you guys that Realtor.com put out yesterday, that there was a survey put up by the Harris Poll of 3,000 customers in February, and they were saying 6 out of the 10, these are potential sellers, are going to be putting their homes on the market in the next 6 months. Do you guys feel that out there? Do you see that? Do we see this scale? I'm going to play with the scale a little bit later because I've been really excited
I
about
know,
it.
we're so excited.
I'm excited about the scale.
I mean, it's getting better. We're having,
You think it's getting better, Sasha?
it's getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
She's
think.
talking inventory is what she's talking about.
Inventory is getting better.
Yeah,
I
mean,
don't agree with that.
empirically. So,
You disagree?
I disagree with
Okay,
that.
tell me more.
So I think what's happening is the buyer pool is getting less. So that's on this balance right over here. I think our inventory is going to climb a little bit, but it's not going to look at the scale that we got here. This is way down here. This is the seller. Excuse me. This is the buyers. This is the sellers. Inventory increase will help a little bit. 5% interest will help a little bit. A little bit more conversation with our clients will help a little bit, and this thing will start balancing off. And as the buyers start peeling off,
It's on screen.
I'm having fun. Just leave
It's
me
on
alone. Let me
screen.
play.
What else can we
Let me
put in
play.
there?
Let me play. Let me play.
He got this from Alakazam Toys. Everyone, look at the screen now. Look at the screen.
Yes, just go to Alakazam and your
Quentin
market
is
problem is
playing.
solved.
Widen the camera so you get Quentin's hand on his forehead over there.
There's
This is
just-
Quentin's going to
hilarious.
do this.
This is
Yeah, I want to do all kinds of really.
Well, there you go. Play. Come on.
Yeah.
That's what it's here
It's on
for.
the
Play.
screen.
Play. But as I see the buyer pool decreasing. Right, as interest rates go up, it's going to start decreasing. It's going to start carving off people that just can't afford it. Right. Now that's a whole separate conversation on how we can help them. But just as far as getting it to this point of balance, interest rates are going to start peeling folks off. On that end of it, there's going to be a little bit more of
Assessment increases, tax exposure.
all this
Yeah.
inflation, all these little pieces that I put over here are going to get this to that. And then eventually, at some point in time, it's going to go that way on that end of it,
Eventually.
right? Eventually. I think.
When is that eventually?
Well,
Anyone?
Not this year.
I was going to say.
Not next year.
I would tell you
I
it's
don't
not
think it's next
soon.
year.
I don't
I think
it's
for the
soon.
amount of money I paid for this, that answer didn't come.
Yeah.
Right?
Not next year.
I don't
No,
think it's next year.
But it's important as professionals in conversations with our clients that they have to understand this. This is where the market is going. Where we're at is not permanent, right? It's not healthy. It's not a balanced market. We as professionals want it there. We want it
Right.
balanced. Thank you for letting me play with my little.
It was great.
My
QB.
I finally understand real estate now.
I was going to say, why didn't we have this
No,
when I was?
that's actually
That was
awesome.
hilarious.
We need that in our office. Just sitting there with every appointment we have.
I got a feeling that was a bit of a zinger.
No,
was a
I love it.
It
I
was
love
definitely
it.
a zinger.
I actually love it.
I
think
got to
that's
tell you,
hilarious.
I've been thinking about this demonstration for 3 days.
Well, we've
for
been
today.
explaining it for 5 years,
This
but
is
it's like
where
here's a
Quentin's
very
like,
clear.
yes, you have, Keith. Yes, you have.
Yeah.
Right?
Very clear
And then it
way
may
of
go
doing
that
it.
way. Who knows? All kinds of
I
stuff.
hope
Play
so.
with my.
I-
A war breaks out. There's inflation. We're still not building enough.
It's gonna be a
Stop playing
while.
with it.
It's gonna
He's
be a
taking his
while.
ball and he's going home.
That's right, I'm taking my toys and going home.
Jump in here, QB.
I think the latest numbers I was reading this week, people that are had applied for mortgages in the
Yes.
last year and not made a house.
Yes.
The number that are interested in reentering the buyer's market is only 24% of them, so 1 out of 4. And we were talking about cash offers. If you read NAR's sort of summary of where and how people were buying homes, 52% of down payments came from the sale of their current house. So if you're wanting to move into this market, you're probably going to need a down payment that comes from a sale of a home, and we're going to cycle through some of that inventory because it's spring, and situationally in springtime, we rotate a lot of people around in Charlottesville and the surrounding area. And so this is a good time to do that. I do think when you figure the rates are 4.75 now, 4.755?
Just call them five and change
Call it
5 and
five-ish,
change?
Yeah.
5 and change.
to go higher as well.
That's another $135 per 100,000, if I'm doing that in my head, so I might be a little bit off. So for a $600,000 house, that's another $800 a month, and that's going to push people out. There's some balance happening, but it's not because the houses are less valuable. It's just because we're moving from having,
He's just
we're
showing
just going
you
to put this.
the answer. I love it. I love that. Don't let him take that. I love it.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank
he
you.
looks so
Sasha,
happy, too.
Sasha,
I just want to play with it all the time.
Sasha, you're welcome here anytime.
Okay.
You play
Just to play with
nice.
your
Thank
little
you.
minion guy.
Finish your thought, QB.
So there's some balance coming, but I don't think it's the kind of balance people are thinking when they're thinking backwards in time to some sort of
Correct.
crash.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to
So
make.
with inventory this low, even though we've got buyers saying, I'm just going to rent for a couple years, or we have people that don't qualify anymore, there's still more buyers than there are houses. And so you're still going to have this happen. So in 2011,
I'll keep my hands down.
in 2011, you had little things creating
Oh, yeah.
the balance
So
shift.
I ran numbers.
And now we're in 2022, and we're in the same place. It's just that they're all big things.
I totally get it.
He
2000,
needs his own little like spot. He needs his own little mic and camera to sit on the screen.
He does. He does.
the 2011, I ran the numbers, you guys have quarter over quarter, 2021 versus 2022, and I ran the first quarter, Charlottesville only, no construction, 2011, we were 46 homes that were sold versus, there you go, buddy, versus this last quarter was 98, so almost half, right? And the median sales price was 248. The median sales price this last quarter was 424. 70 days on market, by the way, in 2011, first quarter.
And
Now,
remember when people were so
it's 7.
excited about that? You know, the sellers were thrilled with that.
Oh, my gosh.
It was all, we had a 2, 3, 4 month marketing plan we had to talk to people about. And I mean, that was just the norm, and it was fine. And sellers were perfectly happy. So it will get back there.
So our
but-
skills going to have to rechange,
Yeah.
right? Right now, our skills are trying to figure out how to fix this balance, right? And it's not fixing it by putting little smiley things in a scale there that.
Carrie Griggs giving you guys some props right now on the show. Scott Morris giving you guys some props on the show. We got a lot of commentary coming in from agents on what the expectation is for the remaining of the year for the panel. Neil Williamson, hello and welcome to the show. How about you, Sasha, on that? The remaining of the year and going into to next year. I mean, we're through one quarter already.
Yeah, I think the remaining of the year is going to be similar. I mean, the spring, we're still following the cycles we used to follow. They're just all a little more exaggerated right now. So I think the spring is going to be very hot. I do see more things coming up on the hot list. So the new listings coming up every week. We've got a pretty long pipeline of listings coming alive. So I feel like inventory is going to pick up, but unlike, the natural causes that are causing buyers to back out a little bit, there is also the natural cause that brings a lot of buyers in the market in the spring going into the summer because people want to transition between school years. So I think, honestly, we're going to see a lot of the same. I think maybe as we get towards the dead of summer, July and August are typically a little quieter. I don't know if they'll be quiet, but I think they'll slow down a little bit. And then towards the end, winter, like December, we may see a little less chaos just because people aren't as thrilled about listing their houses during the holidays. So I think it'll be very similar. We know that interest rates are going to continue to rise. I don't expect, if they're hovering in the fives, I don't expect to see much difference with people backing out of the market, and I don't expect to see tremendous amounts of inventory adding. So I think a lot of the same.
So the pools are going to start balancing, right?
A little bit.
Yeah,
I think not
2023 is the
drastically.
year that I think you're going to see some things balance back out.
And we have to remember that when we're comparing things to 2020 and 2021, that was kind of hard to say all at once. But when we're comparing to those 2 years, those were 2 years of insanity.
Right.
So they're not really a good comparison.
It's an anomaly.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like a blip on the
Comparison.
radar. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the new normal.
So things you can depend on that are true even outside of the insanity is that inventory is low in comparison to how much we need. We're still going to be seasonal. It got masked in the insane years, but it's still there. And so this is the time to list your house. This is the time to buy a house. You will have more options than you would if you wait. And I'm interested to see how this all plays out as we just get out of the insane anomaly part.
Keith Smith.
Yeah, so one of the other little documents or articles I have here just to throw out there, are we in a housing bubble, guys? Right? That's a question we get asked all the time, right? Should I sell? Should I buy? Is now the right time? Right? I have a very definitive opinion on that end of it. I wanted to see what you guys thought.
Sasha.
So I don't feel like we're in a housing bubble. National indices would say that for the next 5 years, we're still expecting some home price appreciation. Now, it's not going to be 20% or 10% or maybe even 5%, but we're still expecting home price appreciation. So to be in a bubble, that indicates it has to burst, right? Which means it has to pop and we suddenly see things dropping drastically. I don't see any sign of that because I don't think we'll have enough inventory for people to be housed in. And our rental rates are so expensive that it's like you don't have other choices for shelter. So people have to figure out how to have shelter. Now, that's a bigger problem that we're not going to solve on this panel today with affordability in general, but I see continued appreciation even in spite of interest rates rising. And I see continued interest rates rising, and that's just, bound to happen. And I don't feel like we're going to pop and burst and suddenly decline.
No, by definition, the bubble means a lack of value, propping up something with nothing inside of it, and that's not what we're seeing right now. It's very, very different, and I think it's easy to confuse because, as we've talked about this before, in the days of COVID, when you just got a cold, you couldn't get in to see your doctor because every symptom of a cold was the same symptom as COVID, and so I think there's a similar confusion in housing. I know there are a lot of things that feel like 2009 when you're a buyer and when you're looking, but although it feels the same, it's a dramatically different situation.
Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
So clearly, we have a lack of inventory, and this is just my opinion, and it's not my opinion, it's of the smart people that I'm reading all the time. We just don't have enough new construction happening, and that's just simply it. When the bubble popped, and to speak to your point, there was a bubble. Everybody could see it. I tell this story all the time. I knew it was coming before it came. I just couldn't get out of its way. Right? I owed too much money. I was in the middle of development on that end of it. And when I had bankers come into my office and say, I heard you're trying to do a $10 million development job, I will pay you to borrow money from us at a 1 over prime, I kicked them out of my office. We don't see any of that coming up right now. But we were in the 2 years ago, beginning of COVID, 5.5 million new construction nationwide short. We're up to 4.5. We picked up about 1 million in 2 years. But it's
Right.
supply and demand 101.
Simple economics,
Yeah,
And if you look at, the new construction community here is trying its hardest to get us caught back up, but we're a good 5 years behind on inventory. COVID didn't help. You couldn't be building things. Nothing was being produced.
Yeah.
We're years and years behind. And another panel for a different day
So-
is just the regulation is not helping that community get this where it needs to be.
Yeah.
We
I
dive
agree.
into that regularly on the show.
5% of Albemarle County allocated for development. That includes commercial and residential. And that is not expanding anytime soon. Neil Williamson, watching the program, he would very much applaud that comment right there. It's different from 2010 in that there is a hell of a lot less inventory There is a lot more regulation in place for lending, and folks are not utilizing their houses as piggy banks with HELOCs.
Thank you, Neil, for, as ATM machines, where
Yeah.
you're
Yes.
underwater because you just get a little equity and then you go spend it to do a renovation or to buy a new car or whatever else it is, and then all of a sudden you're underwater on your
Yeah.
house again. So
Well,
we're not doing that these days.
The regulatory environment
Knock on wood.
doesn't allow
Don't
it.
be doing that.
Don't do that.
Well, it doesn't allow it. You can't do it on that end of it. And we talked about this before, you need to take possession of your home within 60 days. And, that wasn't the case.
Do we
back
want to
in-
go down that road?
We do not. Well,
Okay.
the next.
Okay.
Need another whole hour, whole panel for that.
Another full hour on that end of it. But, the simple economics 101, we just don't have enough homes. But Sasha, you brought up a very passionate thing of mine, which is housing affordability. And that's the point I was trying to make in this little scale thing that I have here. This buyer pool is just going to start reducing because the affordability is just going to come off. The question becomes where they're going to go. We did an analysis on, I believe it was Wednesday's show, if I remember correctly, where I just took a rental, a four-bedroom rental at Lake Monticello that was 2,000, I can't remember the exact number, a little over 2,000. I ran a PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on it, and it was exactly the same amount of money for buying it. Now, as interest rates go up, that might change a little bit. But even these entry-level buyers, where are they going to go? And,
They got nowhere to go.
and-
And to put this in perspective, a rent on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the Villas of Southern Ridge is $2,000 a month. You take $2,000 a month and you buy a home and your mortgage payment on that's equivalent to a $385,000, $400,000 home. People are paying more in rent than a mortgage payment on a $400,000 home. That is startling and concerning. Anyone want to touch that?
You have to have more doors. We can talk about 5% of land in Albemarle. I'd just be happier if they would shorten the process so that we could
Right.
build it out faster and then use it up and then add another 10%. But when it's 3 years from application to keys, we're always going to be behind the 8 ball and you're going to be stuck. You need more rentals, you need more apartments, you need higher density, you need more single family. I will applaud any development that puts more houses down because the only way out of this is to stop pushing $800,000 buyers into $400,000 neighborhoods where they're outbidding everybody and raising the entire price point.
Judah Wickhauer just got a shout out from Neil Williamson on the scale camera, literally in the comment section. He's
Yes.
created a picture-in-picture
scale
on
cam.
the scale camera
Oh, I'm
while
so
having our
excited.
faces on screen in Hollywood Squares fashion right there.
I love it.
Judah,
He
you're
deserves
outstanding.
his own little space.
Mustache Dan Pettit from Real Estate 3 for Sasha specifically. Sasha, as Albemarle County continues to build more townhomes due mostly to cost of land, are you seeing a lot more townhome contracts, Sasha?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of people consider townhomes that wouldn't have considered them in the past. I think right now we're finding, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Isn't that
I
awesome?
get to see our little, oh, he's so cute, our little minion.
Yeah.
I think we're finding, the one problem with townhomes is that most of them do not have first floor masters. And so we're seeing, we've got this shortage of accessible living for people that do not want to have lots of stairs and that would like to age in place. So we've got the shortage there. We've got the shortage of just affordable detached housing. But yeah, townhomes have gotten really popular, and I would say they are selling at prices that are very, very comparable to small single-family detached homes.
You wanna know
just
the
a year
number?
or two ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
tell me the average.
So it's actually the stats quarter over quarter is the opposite. Single family attached in Albemarle County, first quarter of this year versus first quarter last year was actually up 18%. Attached, single family attached was down 59%, almost 60% quarter over quarter. But the price is spot on. This last quarter, $468,000.
You mean number of sales is down?
Number of sales
because
down.
the inventory is not
That's
there.
exactly
But if
right.
they were there, people would be happily buying them for a premium.
That's a $66,000 jump year over year.
What's the median on the townhome
Median is 468.
in Albemarle County?
This is Albemarle County sold new construction single family attached only.
Just for a quarter, though.
Just for a
that
quarter.
That,
Just
that's
for
a
a
lot
quarter.
of those new, I mean, we're a lot of those like Cascadia, like brand new construction homes that people bought 2 or 3 years ago, and they bought them and realized that they could cash out of them in 2 or 3 years and make quite a pretty
Sure,
penny on
sure.
them after only having owned them for 2 or 3 years. So I think we're seeing that's a lot of
So these are from
newer, first
these
resale homes.
these are
Yeah.
from builders to owners. These are
Right.
not resales. These are
Oh,
just
those only. Okay,
these
I
are
see
only
what
new
you're saying.
construction,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
and
we just need more of them because people are happy to buy them.
So I hate to disagree with the Mr. Beckham here, but the time isn't.
He likes disagreeing with
I
me?
do,
That's a lie.
actually.
He enjoys it.
I do enjoy it, actually. But we got to get balanced
We
here.
all do.
It's 6 years. So there's a project in Fluvanna County, 325 units. I'm part of it. It took us 6 years to start actually developing the physical action of horizontal development, which will take another year, maybe another year and a half for that's done, and then probably 6 months after that before we start going vertical. So this is going to be close to 8 years from the time it started until we can put people in homes. That's just way too long. I've been trying to spread a hashtag, turn red tape into green tape, and that is purely what, it took us 2.5 years just to go through site plan process, which is insane.
QB, Sasha, anything on that?
It needs to be faster. We're talking all the time about how inventory affects fair housing, how it affects price points, how it affects housing affordability and affordable housing. And if there's anything that we talk about consistently in the greater Charlottesville area, it's about wanting to level the playing field some and have more housing where people can start building wealth and have security and a sense of community. And it's never going to happen until we have more doors because there's just not enough. And that gap right now between housing affordability and housing prices is just so wide from the last year. And that's a fair market. That's how that works. That's us representing clients well and doing what needs to be done. But we've got to make that gap shorter in order to affect things for people that are being priced out, that are paying $2,000 a month in rent because they can't build up a down payment, which is where the 52% down payment coming from the house you already owned is coming from.
Right.
Well said. Sasha?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. People kind of, I feel like I see people kind of making comments about how realtors are the reason for unaffordable housing. Like when I represent a client and I negotiate well on a bidding war and I get them the best and the highest for their property, like is that me really undoing affordability in Charlottesville? And I would argue that the answer is no. Like all of us could go discount our houses and list them for 50% off if we wanted to individually try to impact affordable housing. I would say that is not, in 2007, no one was calling me and thanking me for the fact that we had over inventory and housing suddenly I wasn't getting a lot of happy calls then either. So I would say I always say don't flatter yourself, right? Like I individually cannot impact this with how I'm negotiating
Correct.
bidding wars on individual properties. This is a systemic issue.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people much smarter and better at affordable housing issues than I am are the ones that are going to have to make major impacts on this. And, we can sit on housing advisory boards, we can volunteer, we can make sure that different, politicians hear our different stance on things. But I feel like this is something that we cannot impact on the residential resale side as much as we would like to think that we can, unfortunately.
I don't disagree.
Most straightforward way of doing this is expanding the development area and the jurisdiction and making 24%, this statistic is terrifying to me, 24% of the cost of a new home is tied to paperwork and red tape.
$100,000.
$100,000 on a $400,000 house is not labor, land, drywall, sticks, bricks. That's terrifying.
And if you talk to the folks that produce the homes, if that was half the amount, the sale price would be half the amount, right? They would lower the price by $50,000. They're not gonna, they're not gonna do this because the people that build in these developments, they understand this balance
Right.
better than we do.
Yeah, we've got amazing builders that are trying to tackle this, and they want Charlottesville to be an attractive place to live, work, and play. Otherwise, they have no future clientele. But again, it's like the small entities together. Perhaps we can make a difference. Lobbying for things, but we cannot individually make a difference just with our own entity taking action in a residential resale market.
Well, I strongly disagree with you because I'm doing it.
Well, I'll join you. You tell me where to show up.
I would love you to have with it. As folks who watch the show know, I chair the Piedmont Community Land Trust. I have a meeting with Stanley Martin after this that we are going to be working on some units. We were able to close and move 11 affordable housing buyers into homes that are permanently affordable for $250,000. And it
love
was
it.
purely was a relationship that we established with that. So it's possible.
And those homes are selling for now what?
$243,750.
What was the resale
Today.
on those Nassau?
Oh, so the Nassau's a different story. So, but they sold, that sold for 240, 238 and 240 on that end of it. So, I mean, I don't want to get into the land trust model, but it keeps it permanently affordable. The homes that Jerry's referring to had an appreciation in 2 years of $100,000.
Correct.
But
And then we're back
because
to the same,
because
back
of
to the same
back to the
issue.
same problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring
But
to.
those buyers walked out with almost $50,000 worth of equity to move up the housing ladder, and that we were helping
Right.
them buy market rate house. Another buyer came in, gets the chance to build that same equity and move up. My point is we can make a difference, and I will, if you're interested, I will invite you to everything.
Get ready.
I used to be on all the things, and I took a little
don't-
1-year break from a baby.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'll be back. You know, you guys will get my opinions one way or another.
What about upzoning in the city of Charlottesville, and how the future land use map could impact increased density, more inventory, and maybe breed affordability? You guys buy that? Sasha, you want to start with that?
I mean, if used properly, certainly. Oh, I should have looked this up. I meant to look it up. The ones over on Shamrock, did one go under and come back out?
They're
or
both
is that
on the
one-
market now.
They're both back
They're both
again.
on the market
I was
now.
just looking
I was
yesterday. I was like, I should
with
get
the
an
owner
update.
last night.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if used properly, yes, I mean, it's totally a believable plan that would work. I just don't see a lot of ability for the people who would use it properly to be the purchaser. You know, in this market, it just doesn't seem like that's what.
1,000% agree with you.
Yeah, I think the comment or the question on that is first of all, I'm all in favor of it. I'm supporting it. I'm pushing it through. I don't think this is going to be 10,000 units. I don't think this is going to be a huge boost. It's going to be helpful,
Right.
But it's not going to be the large numbers that I think that they're
I think it's
talking about.
investors scooping these up, creating more density to drive more profit margin. One man's opinion, right
Yeah,
there.
I tell you what, this is an important topic to me, and I'm digging into the transactions. I don't see that much of it today. I think as the process goes along, you're going to maybe start seeing some of that.
I mean, I'm kind of with Quentin. I need more doors, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like if they're not being used the right way or the way they should, okay, that's not great. But more doors will at least open up availability for people in the doors below. But it's not going to be it's not going to have a net effect that's really
that's an
impactful, I
interest-
don't believe.
I think though, you know, we give, much like we often get accused of being responsible for the housing market it is and how it is, let's not demonize developers that are making more doors for
Or
us.
investors.
Or investors.
Yeah.
If they're making more doors, if they are reconstituting rundown properties, if they are converting motels into apartments, whatever it is that they're doing,
DeAndre McDonald.
those more doors make that gap that we have to bridge smaller. And yes, we can't individually fix the entire housing market, but we can participate along with developers and government and citizens and nonprofits and be a piece of it.
Correct. I agree with that.
We got some pushback of the distinguished gentleman here.
Oh, sure.
This is from President of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson.
Oh, I was just going to talk
Uh-oh,
about the
nobody
bet
wants to
on my
argue
mustache
with him on this. He's
Neil
always going
Williamson,
to be right.
respectful, pushing back on Mr. Smith.
Sure.
He says, it is important to note the units provided under the new development model are subsidized by the other new units in the project, making 85% of the new housing less affordable.
So I don't disagree with that. I think that's the comment we're talking about. So as we increase, it kind of helps everything. I'm not so sure we're against seeing that any differently. But for those at the panel that don't know, I have a bet with Neil, that this new zoning will not be done by 6/1/23, and I'm betting my mustache.
He's going to shave his
After
mustache
seeing-
on set.
On set.
Wait, you're betting that it will be done, or
It
you're?
will not be done.
Oh.
He thinks it will be.
Williamson thinks it's going to be done by current council as part of their lasting legacy before
Yeah.
3 positions turn over in the November 2023 election.
Ex Neil, if you
Okay.
watched the planning district commission meeting last night.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, there was a comment that one of the planning commissioners from the city made that gave me a little bit of hope that I might still keep my mustache.
Which one, Stolzberg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Lyle?
Yes.
Yeah, Lyle. Beckham, any thoughts on here? I see the wheels turning.
I still want people to remember that there's a difference between housing affordability, which are things that we can affect with nonprofits and that developers can participate in, and there, you can make some movements in that, which is very different from affordable housing. Affordable housing with a capital A requires government to bridge that gap. There is no way around it that I can foresee in that group of people that make less than 50% of the area median income that are in high rentals that are soaking up 55, 60% of their gross income every month. And you've got to have that participation for that. So even if a developer builds expensive units, that still takes pressure off the system as a whole. If there is a $600,000 house that is convenient to town, you won't have $600,000 buyers pumping up a small neighborhood in Belmont by $100,000 over what it was a year ago. And so anybody that adds doors right now, I'm in favor of. If you add rentals right now, I'm in favor of it. Everything that reduces that pressure. Do I want more housing everywhere for everybody at every price point, both rentals and for purchase? Absolutely. And I'm going to cheer every step of the race and not just stand at the finish line complaining.
Well said. Keith Smith.
So change gears a little bit, right? So the reality of it is the rubber band is expanding. We have clients that we are helping now buy at a certain price point in Buckingham, in Waynesboro, Stanton. I mean, that's just the way this is going. When this scale gets balanced, or this scale goes back to this way, what do you think that's going to happen to those markets? You think those markets are going to stay stable, or they're going to start decreasing in value a little bit?
Gosh, it's so hard to say because I just feel like we are so far behind on inventory that it's like, it almost feels like a mystical world to imagine this time when we're going to get caught up. I mean, it's so many years down the road that we're going to get caught up in the number of households that we
Agreed.
need for the people that come to Central Virginia. You know what? I don't know. That's kind of like, remember when Crozet started to like become a big little city? At first it felt like, oh, it's just this little grocery store and there's some like stuff scattered around. And now Crozet is its own like little town. It's like a little mini city of Crozet, right? And I think we always thought like, oh, are people going to push that direction? And then when the market starts getting a little softer, will people start coming back into the middle? Crozet is not going anywhere,
Yeah.
right? Like that felt like it was the outer edge of the, if you were going a little past Ivy and a little west. I think these places, they're going to become substantial. They're going to have their own little amenities. They're going to have little communities. I think people are going to
Well
love
said.
it there for
Well
time to
said.
come. I don't think we're going back. We're not running out.
Historically, particularly about the Waynesboro side of the hill,
Gas prices going up, market softening.
and
That's what you're going to say.
And I was wrong.
Yeah, well, certainly now,
We-
but historically you were right.
Right.
Historically, when gas hit $4, the other side of the mountain just dried up. But much like this scale in front of us, these things
There's
that we're
too many other things
there's-
now.
well, that's the point. That's
Yeah.
exactly right, Sasha. These things in here are just these little things are different now
Well, I
that
mean,
we've
we
never
haven't-
experienced before.
We haven't highlighted that the students, UVA is admitting more students than ever before this fall. More students than ever before. They have to live somewhere. And they're hiring more people than ever before. And the data science school hasn't even opened yet on Ivy Road.
So
I mean,
the-
think about that.
So again, this balance, as Quentin was saying on the seller side of it, you also have the high-tech jobs that are coming in here in droves, right, on that end of it, which, this balance may never happen, right? If we can't get this inventory up, to go do this, like I said, historically, for 30-something years, as soon as gas got to $4, the other side of the mountain just stopped.
Right.
That is not the case. You got EVs. And I was having conversations.
Work from home.
Work from home. Yeah.
Zoom.
It's going to be less of a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Paul MacArthur. Not everyone. Avenues. Paul MacArthur. Not everyone needs or should buy a house.
Correct.
It's not the
But-
right decision.
But everyone needs a roof over their head, and if rental's
Yes.
horrible, it's kind of like.
That's it.
A lot of people do need to buy a house. I mean, I would never have advocated for that years ago, but like now, if you're gonna pay the same in rent and you're going to be here for some longevity, most of these people do right now need to buy houses. That's the scary thing. Not everybody needs to move. Not everybody needs a nicer house. Not everybody needs 500 more finished square feet. Not everybody needs to go to a place that now has a pool, but everyone does need shelter. So we don't have a lot of really wonderful options.
And I think one of the biggest defining differences between intergenerational wealth is the ability to own a home.
100%.
You know, we've talked about market softening, and it makes it sound sometimes like you're going to buy a house that's suddenly not worth anything. And
But that's not going to happen.
and it's if you're there for 5 to 10 years, you're fine. It's not. Could you lose money trying to turn a house around in 90 days? Probably.
Sure.
There's
but if
a
you
place
put
that
your
would
money
happen,
in the
but
stock market, yeah, it's all cyclical
but-
if you're in for longevity.
and we just said earlier on the show, don't treat your house like a commodity. There's a house that you live in. What are you laughing at me for?
Well, no, I'm not laughing
You're
at
laughing
you.
at me.
You're
If it's a
right.
house you live in, you're good to go.
You're
No,
right, but
I-
you're wrong. Were you going to say you're right, but no?
No, just 90% of the folks out there should not treat their house like a commodity. 90%. There's still a portion
Yes.
of the population that has the nuanced thinking that is able to do it and do well with it.
And that's a fair ratio.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's
But
fair.
totally
he
accurate.
is right, though. Kim Martin, there's so much remote work now, people can live in more affordable counties and not have to worry about commuting anywhere. That's a comment about Waynesboro, Stanton, and
That's
Buckingham.
exactly right.
But you said that.
But that's
Yeah.
why I was wrong, right? So the scale is now skewed a little bit because now I can buy a Bolt for EV for 30, 40 grand, right?
You gotta wait 6 months, but you can buy
You can
one.
wait 6 months, right?
That's
I'm working 3 or 4 days a week. We on the Planning District Commission, we are now going to a hybrid scenario where it was 100% remote. Now they have to be in the office 2 or 3 times a week. So you're going to start seeing that transition go, and that's going to offset your dollar expense
Right.
on the gas side of things. Look, I think I planned, as long as Jerry will have me, to be sitting in this seat for another 3 to 5 years, if not closer to 5 years. And Sasha, you're right. I think somewhere in that time frame, we're still going to be having this discussion because I do not think the inventory is going to increase enough.
I
Buyer
think
pool,
it will get more balanced. It's not
Yeah.
going to be crazy like this. It's not going to be the best time to sell your house for 5 more years, but I think we're going to be having some problems.
well,
for
let's
years to
talk
come.
about that for a second. We get these questions all the time. I'll show you guys. Should I sell now? Why should I not sell now? Where am I going to go? Right? We can unpack some of these a little bit on an end of it. But I was having a conversation with a buyer the other day that said, "Well, I'm going to wait a year," and I went through the math and I said, "Man, this is why you shouldn't do this. Even if you can buy a house now, right? And if you're going to stay in this house for 5 years, at a 3% year-over-year gain, because that's minimum. I have a 21-year spreadsheet where it includes the time of great unpleasantness. We're hitting about 5%. And that calculates the up. I mean, it's just, you want to speak a little bit to that, Sasha, on how that conversation
Well, I
goes?
mean, I think waiting a year might be one of like the worst possible decisions most people could be making, unless I mean, everybody's circumstances are different. I mean, if you don't know that you have job stability or your life might change, that
Sure.
would be one thing. But I think if you know, like, if you're waiting for this market to go down, I think
It's
you're
not
gonna be,
gonna happen.
yeah, you're gonna be sitting a lot longer. And so I
Yeah.
always, like, if you don't like where prices were this time last year,
It's gonna get worse.
you're unhappy today, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like where they are now, you're really going to be unhappy next spring, and the interest rates are also rising. So I would say do not wait a year. Like if you are on the fence and you think buying really needs to be happening in your next 3 to 5 year plan, this is a good time to do it. With sellers, I mean, my most tenured buyer's agent on the team, we just had her sell her house. I'm selling my house this year. Like we are all selling right now because while I do think there is going to be incremental appreciation for the next 5 years, this is like we are in this frenzy right now where people are we are so behind on this. And there are so many buyers competing because we haven't absorbed some of that buyer pool that's left over from COVID. There's a frenzy that is occurring right now. Am I willing to say it's not going to be occurring spring next year? No, I'm not. I think it's possible, but I know what is in front of me today, and I know that I want to sell in the next year. And so for my personal household, I feel that this is the best possible time to sell. As interest rates start rising, we do not know what's going to happen, but we
Right.
know what we have
So
today.
Sasha, did you talk to my wife on the way over?
No, is
Because-
she like ranting about the same thing right now? Are you selling too?
Yona wants to sell.
Oh my
Keith
gosh,
does.
all the real estate agents are selling their houses. That should be a
says something.
clue. That should be a
says
clue.
something.
Right.
So
we're all
We were
selling
having
our
this
houses.
conversation yesterday, Judah, in the studio.
Yeah. And we talked about it on the show, when the professionals are selling and the professionals are buying investment properties,
Right.
that should tell you something.
Right, and I just bought a property for my mom to come move here, and she doesn't need to be here for another year or two, but we bought it right now because of where the rates are
Yeah.
right now, and I know what they are today, you know,
So that speaks more volumes than an explanation of why.
Definitely.
So if the professionals are doing it,
Talking the talk and walking the walk.
And I think one of the things that you keep pulling in that's correct is a lot of people are looking at should I buy or sell, and they're only looking at the housing market. Remember what's going on everywhere else in your economic life. What's inflation doing? What are interest rates doing? How does the economy look? You know, what are the supply chain things?
Right.
Everything is saying this is the time to have the best deal for your life, even if it's not the best deal for the house you're purchasing,
correct.
because this other stuff is going to impact you really solidly, and you can't change the price of the house. But you can fix your cost, you can get in at a good interest rate, you can flip that, sell the house you've got and put a good down payment, and you can control that part of your life so that you can better weather the other things that are going to happen around you in the economy.
Bravo. Bravo. How about this comment? Yesterday, no, was it, it was Wednesday. Professional in the seat that you were in right there in a meeting. $1 million is not the luxury market anymore.
oh, it's not.
Oh, gosh.
Exact words, straight face.
Oh, yeah.
$1
I
million
can
is not
remember
luxury market anymore.
when I was selling real estate in California, you were a wee little thing, I'm sure. When real estate agents would be proud that they had sold $1 million worth of real estate because the houses were like $120,000 a pop. And now it's just, I don't even know what to call the luxury market anymore.
I mean, what is the threshold of the luxury market? Is it 2+?
I would say 2. I mean, it feels like there
That's
are a lot of
crazy.
people in the ones, you know,
Right,
there's
there's
a lot of
in the
people that have
ones.
to be in the ones.
New
2
construction is one.
Seems less,
So
yeah.
that's where I was
2
just
seems
gonna
less. There's definitely a smaller pool in the 2s and above. It's crazy.
So we're working on a new construction class that we're going to actually open up to any real estate agent to go to see that I'm going to teach. That's talking about production, how to do land purchases, and custom builders. So custom builders are back in the market. They were not there anymore. But I've got a new construction buyer for Western Albemarle, and they were like, "Well, can we have something built for under $1 million?" And I said, "I can't believe I'm saying this."
No way, Jose.
Unless it's got a 1.2 or 1.5 in front of it, you're not getting new construction in Western Albemarle. It's just not there on that end of it, which is just a scary thought. When I
Or
started,
Eastern Albemarle.
I remember when I started building and developing in 1987. To have a $150,000 house was whoa, that was huge, right? Now, to add $1 million to that is just amazing.
And people have to remember, luxury is not about the price, it's about the product. And so that price is going to float around based on
But it's
the economy and inflation and everything else.
Well, it's an interpretation. The vehicle you
Yeah.
drive is luxury to you. The pickup truck I drive is luxury to me, right?
We-
So it
yeah,
means
we
different-
come from different places.
The vehicle Clinton drives is a luxury vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a luxury vehicle.
Well,
We're going to cut to the chase, all right?
I think my pickup truck's luxury. But that's it.
We have Sydney Durham, excited to listen and learn with this panel. Fantastic people. Gracie Armstrong Haynes watching the program. Fantastic panel. She highlights her daughter, Ivy, who was on this show. A great example of this, getting out from under rent. She bought a house. Gracie,
Yep.
I believe your daughter bought it in the Afton market, if you may. How about this? And this is done with empathy. This will be said with empathy and with humility, but it will be said with a factual mindset.
Now I'm really paying attention.
Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville, as this continues, will just become the zip codes and the areas for, I hate to say this, wealthy folks with some deep pockets.
Wealthy white people.
And the outer counties will be, and you see this with New York City, you see this with DC, you see this with a lot of epicenter of employments, will be the jurisdictions where folks commute from to the epicenter of employment. Anybody on that?
We're playing
Can
with
you
the.
put the toys
I know, you guys are so
Come on,
distracting
let's
with your
put
little
the
minion
toys
over
away.
there.
The ADD is kicking in
I
over
mean,
there
the
with
real
Smith.
truth is this is happening all across all across the nation. Like, markets where you used to be able in Texas, in the Midwest to buy a house for $100,000, they're now $350,000. So it's happening all across the nation. I would like to think that we will find ways to be able to develop more property that people can find affordable closer. But then I also think the epicenter, like the definition of epicenter, also moves. It's like people mentally start to be, after COVID, a lot of people were kind of like, we don't really want to live in big cities with, I guess, downtown Charlottesville being our big city. People don't want to live near that many people. They want to be more rural. They want to be more isolated. They want to be a little further away from, their next door neighbor. So I think the definitions will change. But in general, I agree that is a problem, not only here in Charlottesville, it's a problem all across the nation. And right now, money just seems make-believe, right? It's like everything just costs more and more and more, and then we print more and more and more, and then everything just gets higher and higher and higher. And at some point in time, there will have to be a massive systemic answer to this, and I hope that we find a way to develop some more affordable things in Charlottesville. But right now, everything everywhere is just going up.
And let's not pretend that gentrification and pricing people out of markets is something that just started happening in the last 24 months. It's the same bus, just where was the pedal at?
Right.
It got floored the last 2 years.
Now it's just more exaggerated.
Yeah, it's just more exaggerated. And then we're back to how do you fix affordable housing, and you're back to you need government intervention, because without that, it's just not going to happen.
So I have been part of a national cohort for 4 years, put on by Portland State University and the University of Washington, to particularly tackle ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, as a tool for affordable housing. And this was pre-COVID. 4 years ago, one of the things that the city of Portland, the city of Seattle has done, if you have, back to this red tape, green tape in government end of it, if you go ahead and have an affordable housing project and you check a certain amount of boxes, you get an expedited approval. And it's made a difference.
Tax credits as well.
That was huge. There's $15,000 worth of tax credits.
Substantial.
On that end of it. There's partners on it, but to Quentin's point, the government got together with the land trust, got together with the private sector, because I was working with land trusts out there to go ahead and do this, but it made a difference. Did it solve the affordable housing problem? Probably not, but it made a difference.
I used to be super passionate. Used to be is the wrong phrase. I was more passionate in the past of the value of ADUs. But now finding someone to build an ADU on your property, you're not going to find anybody. And the cost of the ADU has gotten to the point where it's $150 or more. So who's going to afford the ADU? And once the ADU is built, you got such substantial debt service to cover, you're going to have to rent it at a price point that's going to be
not affordable.
Not affordable.
So the way that got solved out there was, you're 100% right. It's actually, as a former developer and builder, it's actually more expensive to
build a tiny home.
This tiny home than a large home, because you're still building the same bathrooms, the same, all this kind of great stuff. The way they did that is they partnered with the land trust and got government assistance on that end of it. And the way what it did is it kept the person in the neighborhood. And what happened was they got rent. We actually got rent back from them. They got some income. But what they did is they carved off the parcel that's underneath the ADU and put it in a land trust model. So that actually worked real well. But Jerry's 1,000% right. If you go through certain neighborhoods of Seattle where my daughter lives, you see these ADUs all the time. You know what they are? Airbnbs.
Right.
Yeah. Anyone want to touch Airbnbs on this market?
No.
No?
I just like to
It's a
know.
sticky one.
I mean,
So let me
not
ask.
solving the problems that we're worried about, unfortunately.
So let me ask the panel a question that we get asked all the time. So we're representing a seller, or we're trying to represent a seller, and the question is asked, okay, where am I going to go, right? How do we answer that question? What's the tools we have in our toolbox
Oh, Lord.
to go ahead
mean,
and do that?
I really, okay.
How do we navigate
I'm
that
a seller.
concept?
I'm going to be a seller soon, right? And I was like, all right, this is a guinea pig test. I'm going to see what this is really like. So, we're doing paint touch-ups all through our house. I have a 1-year-old, so my living room is a playroom. My dining set's all pushed off to the side. We've got to like totally inconvenience our lifestyle. We've got to get it all cleaned up.
Have
We're
yard
doing
sales.
everything. Oh my God, we had the biggest yard sale of all time. So sorry if you missed that, but it was really amazing. We're doing all of these massive things, and we're following the exact instructions that we would tell our sellers to try to follow. And then, on the back end of it, I'm selling my house. I'm building a house right now, so I know that I have a home somewhere towards the end of this year. I don't know when, based on supply and everything else that's going on. So I know that likely if I sell my house in the spring, maybe I can rent it for a couple months, and then I'll max that possibility out. I'm going to be homeless for a couple of months. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over to the apartments at Stonefield and rent a couple of months.
There you go.
Or
That's what
I'm
you
going to
guys are
find,
doing?
I'll find something on, no. Now I'm going to live in my mom's house that we just bought, but that's what our plan was. We were going to go rent in the apartments. We had a friend who
With
has
Kelly
like,
and 2 kids?
one child full-time, one child part-time. And we were just going to figure
Wow.
it out. Luckily, we don't have pets. Pets make it a little more complicated, but there are solutions for pets too. I feel like, I have these conversations with people and I'm like, for $100,000 extra, would you be willing to stay in an apartment for a couple months that you don't really love? Probably. Would you be willing to put your stuff in a pod? That's what we're doing. We're putting some of our stuff in a pod. We're going to live like very modestly out of a couple of suitcases for a couple of months. We do have little kids, so I feel your pain. Like, we figured it out. And it's like, okay, if you're going to make $5,000 extra, maybe it's not worth it. If you're going to make $50,000 extra,
You're thinking about it.
let's start running through possibilities. Do you have any friends with a basement? Do you have somebody who bought an RV on a whim during COVID? Like, my buyer's agent was going to live in her RV and put her stuff in storage. So it's like, I don't feel like that is really the objection that people are making it out to be. There are other options. If you're selling purely to take advantage of this market, you are in a financial place of comfort, in enough comfort that you can find solutions in the meantime, or you wouldn't be considering selling your house just to take advantage of the market.
So if I had the clap machine, I would press the clap
Would you
machine.
like-
Yay,
here.
we'll put that, we can share that. There
there we
are lots
go.
of answers
That
to
was
this.
probably the best answer I've ever heard.
Go on Craigslist,
Well,
there's tons of short-term
that.
rentals.
The answer did
Get
not
a long-term
include what?
Airbnb.
It did not include.
Well, it did. She mentioned the 60
Oh,
days.
what else was I supposed to?
The 60 days.
Oh, the 60-day
Okay.
lease back?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we're gonna push that if we can. I mean, there's so many options.
And we've been doing it for how long? 1,000 years. We've been working through all these same issues, getting people from one house to the next.
Right, buying and selling on the same day is always problematic. Like,
So-
you might have a transition anytime.
So what you just said.
Colleen Tripp, is that mom-in-law?
Oh, mom-in-law, oh my gosh, she's our biggest.
Can't
like,
wait to
real
live
estate
with the
fan.
kids.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Can't wait to live with the kids. She just said that.
She's living right now with
Where's she
her.
watching?
She's in Florida, and she is living with her children, like my husband's brother, right now because they sold their house to take advantage of the peak of the market, and they're shopping. And they moved in with a family that has kids and dogs, and it is going to be very tight for a couple months, but for the benefit, it was worth the risk.
So to wrap a bow around what you said, this is exactly why we've been talking about this for 3+ years of trusted advisor. That is why when you're thinking about this, you want to hire a trusted advisor to help you navigate that. And the fact that you're doing it yourself, kudos to you, so you can actually speak to it from a real world perspective.
Kelly just made me laugh out loud.
Is Kelly on here?
Kelly
He's
Tripp,
angry
that
about
was
it.
freaking hilarious.
We're moving in
Kelly
with Jerry.
just
He said
it.
it's fine.
Yeah, one of you guys has a basement apartment, right?
We do, but you guys aren't
we
moving
literally
in
were like, I'll move into our office space for a
Kelly.
week. Like, what? There are so many solutions. It's like, if you can make extra money on your house that well surpasses the cost and inconvenience of moving twice, you should really consider it. I'm not going to say it's right for everyone, but it's
Oh,
a really good option.
I just really hope Yona's not watching this.
Yona is
I'm calling
watching.
Yona immediately because we need more inventory over
Because
there.
you just took away every excuse that I was making and just
Yeah, you don't
answered
have a
it.
little
answered
one-year-old
it,
running
ans-
around.
ans-
Well, and what a great bonding experience for family to be
Yes,
closer together.
For all of us
and-
to live in a place smaller than this room.
Yeah, but we
It's
have a
gonna be
dog, so there you go.
wonderful.
That's-
No, Jerry's house is
You
a
know
lot
what?
bigger than this
Your
room.
dog can stay in our basement
Okay.
apartment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so hey, Sasha, show's over. This is really good.
Kelly, that was so funny.
There are solutions. It is really worth considering, and don't be so worried about that side. There, and especially if you're a buyer free of a house to sell beneath you, you become a very well leveraged buyer at that moment in time, and you're going to look very good. So when you do find a house, you're going to have a much stronger chance of getting through those bidding wars. So,
Yona,
consider it.
yeah, what she said. So,
More comments coming in, guys. We're mindful of their time here. We certainly have
Oh.
run long on
Oh
the show.
yeah, I was wondering, does this show?
It's
end?
usually
Okay.
goes to 11:15.
Rarely.
It goes
Rarely,
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
But-
Okay, we'll
We
just
will wrap
continue
up.
on.
We have another one coming up at 12:30. This is from a builder. Cully Baggett's watching. Totally off subject, but do any of the, you guys on the panel know what the plan is for the city to be able to perform inspections with no current building inspectors employed by the city at this time? The hardworking ladies in the office are also severely understaffed, as I've been waiting 8 weeks for a commercial building permit. I would think with all of the growth and upcoming growth inside the city that this is going to cause some serious problems. Is this something they will outsource to private firms, or will they pull from surrounding county and city inspectors? I know this is off subject, but it's important to address for our community.
Well, it goes back to this red tape into green tape. It goes back into why it's a 24% increase on sales. Every week that goes by that his building permit isn't pulled, it's costing him money.
Yeah.
Right, which is ultimately going to
Truly,
result in the thing. So the little bit I know about this, based on meetings I've been in, is they're in the process of hiring folks, but I think they're going to be looking at outsourcing. So who was the gentleman that?
Cully Baggett, he's a builder. So Neil answers Cully's question. This is the beautiful thing about this show.
We
is
should
it's
just have Neil probably sitting
dynamic.
like in the corner on
He's-
every show,
he's
by the
helping.
way.
He's
Thank
coming
you,
in.
Neil.
He's
You make
coming
us
in on the
look good.
15th.
Oh, good.
Him and Ed Galloway are gonna.
He's like
I
the
know.
Wizard of Oz, just
That's what
behind
I
the
said. I was
curtain.
like, I don't know about this
Multiple
bet. I
monitors.
never
Yes.
disagree with Neil. Neil is always right.
Cully Baggett, this from Neil Williamson to Cully Baggett. Here's what I've been told by the city. We are in the process of hiring 2 inspectors, and to manage the gap, we are hiring a temporary building inspector, and will likely have our deputy building official doing inspections as needed.
So that matches exactly what I was told.
And if you just put in your application today, it's going to be 3 years before you're going to need one anyway. So they've got all that time to hire inspectors.
Keith and Yona can
not
move in
funny.
with Keith's mom and dad.
It's true.
That's what was put on the feed right there.
And who said that?
Mustache Dan Pettit.
Yeah. Well, I think
Pop.
Yeah, I think the other our situation is a little bit different. My parents are in their
Yeah,
in
there
their
are, I mean,
80s.
there are lots of
and,
circumstances it doesn't work
you
that
know,
well for, but there are lots that it does.
Gail Bragg loves the panel. I'm really enjoying the panel. Excellent answer on what to do if planning to take advantage of the market. That's Gail Bragg right there. We got to wrap up. We got to wrap up here.
So I'd like to
Please.
say thank you. I want to do this more regularly because I have notes about trying to discuss NIMBYism, which is a big thing for me. But we'll save that for another panel and another discussion and another show. So keep
Awesome.
stay tuned, folks.
This is fun.
How about you? And you did a hell of a job.
Yeah,
we
really.
knew you would do a hell of a job, and you lived up
you.
to expectations. How about some closing words or thoughts for the many folks that are watching? Sasha, you want to go first here? It's a crazy market. Patience, kind of persistence, something along those lines, or anywhere you want to go.
I love the idea of patience and persistence, but also making sure that the person you are working with, make sure you're working with someone, and make sure that the person you're working with understands all the intricacies. So, like, you know, you might be getting advice from your parents. That may not be the best person to be, you know, getting your advice from in a market like this. Make sure that you've got an advisor who has your needs and your needs alone at their interest in that moment in time and in your transaction specifically. And I think really great advisors are doing a really good job of kind of navigating how weird this market is, and will continue to do so. So there are lots of opportunities out there.
QB?
I totally agree. Every great recipe, it has one cook. And if you get too many of them in the kitchen, you're going to regret it, because something's going to not happen right. Because what you should be telling your advisor, you're telling to the guy that's over your shoulder, and they're going to miss that detail. And so stay focused, be really clear on what your goals are, and then maybe trim them back a little bit so that you've got some flexibility.
Well said. Keith Smith.
So those who watch the show know I'm a Marine, and we used to call those barrack lawyers, right? And you never listen to a barracks lawyer or scuttlebutt or whatever. Go to the trusted source, go to the source's mouth, and learn from that directly. And that's what this show's all about, trying to get some information out. Please come back, guys. Please.
I'd love to. Thanks for
Keith,
having us.
Quentin, Sasha, Judah Wickhauer is our director. I'm Jerry. Kelly Tripp, your comment still is making me laugh here, sir. This is Real Talk, presented by Keller Williams Alliance. The I Love CVille show is up in 42 minutes. And yes, Judah's going to give me a hard time about that. Thank you for joining us. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Judah.
I didn't get to use my wand for
I know.
Isn't that
Well, I
cool?
had to stop playing.
I
So
love this little guy. I think he
Well,
should be out.
I
We should just put him out.
prom